limited budget and resources, which has been previously stated, and also limited time. Whatever solution that you decide to deploy, implement, whatever, the longer it takes you to get it operational and in production, the less protection you have and the greater your exposure. And I think we can summarize some of the points made by my other panel members in terms of endpoints, rate of change, mobility, the model for security, and lump a lot of it under insider threat. WikiLeaks is a subset of insider threat writ large. And how do you detect the guy who's on trusted equipment, three-factor authentication, sitting in your data center and he goes rogue and he doesn't even know it because he's got SQL injected or social engineered, and he's a threat, and he himself doesn't know it, and neither do you with many existing technologies. So I label those three things: limited budget, time, and resources. And insider threat.
Great. A lot of you hit on some of the key topics that were asked about in the research we conducted. And one of the ways I want to start off with is talking about network and infrastructure security. I know some of you specialize in that. Paul, why don't we start with you? In your opinion, what's the largest security challenge that you see with government networks today?
So a lot of people have been talking about what you don't know. And we've met with a number of you already. And I think this area of mobility is one that you need to not be afraid of, but you certainly need to learn a lot more about it. The scale of the problem, I heard somebody mention to me that a typical laptop has 250,000 threats or something like that. I don't know what the number was, faults or flaws or something. Each of our mobile devices is a laptop. And if it's not yet, it will be soon. And so if you start to think about the scale of your problem in terms of magnitude, it's the unauthorized use of personal devices on your network to do government business. It's the bad people using devices that are mobile to try to disrupt that business. And then the easiest one to solve of all is sort of the authorized use of government devices to do government business. But it's really massive when you talk about 300 million devices in the United States. And I think we have to really think about how we're going to address that from a network perspective and not just from a device perspective. So I think that's the largest problem we've got.
Anyone else want to add to that? All right. Well, one thing you did hit on was obviously network, the challenges networks face. So getting into network defenses now. Michael, how important are network-based defenses for federal government IT deployments?
I think in our experience, that network layer out there, we've been able to put a lot of the solutions that you'd usually do, in your enterprise out in the network, apply the exact same policies. It's just we're getting rid of a lot of the garbage further away from you, which I think is a very positive thing. Some of the traditional benefits that would be cited are the simplicity, scalability. You don't have to put the CapEx out there or worry about licensing, that kind of thing. But a couple other points I would make when you're thinking about network-based solutions is that you can tune your internal devices and sensors up and make them more sensitive if you're doing all the easy stuff out there in the network. So you threw away all the stuff that you knew was trash. It actually gives you an option to have your staff and your internal things turned up, and maybe you'll catch stuff you wouldn't have caught because they were busy dealing with all that easy junk that is now being blocked out there in the network.
Anyone else want to comment on that? All right.
We're trying to get them to drinks.
I know, right? Everyone's looking for 80s night here. Talking about network defenses, obviously we then need to look at the element of hacking and people being able to break our security infrastructures. So Chris, in your opinion, what are the easiest ways for hackers today to evade security infrastructures, and more importantly, do you have any answers, or what can we do to stop them or prevent them or at least slow them down?
Sure. I think there's kind of two flavors of evasion. When you're talking about a a threat developer who's looking to get into your organization, these are highly intelligent, very efficient people. And so there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There are 1,000 applications that are coming into your organization today who have already gamed the system. They've figured out that port 80, port 443, and a few other ports are always going to be open. And in fact, in our research, we've seen that some 67% of the applications on enterprise networks either use port 80, port 443, or they port hop. And most of the port 80 apps actually are not browser-based. Most of the port 80 traffic ends up being client-server. So why reinvent the wheel? If I'm developing a threat, I'm going to tack onto one of those applications. Now, the other aspect of evasion is your user. So many of you will be familiar with, particularly on the DoD side, applications like Tor, particularly on the education side, applications like UltraSurf, CGI proxy, PH proxy. There's a whole bunch of these tools that end users can use to help get their job done and circumvent a lot of the controls that are in place. And so, again, going back to some of the things that we've seen in enterprise networks, these things are common. Whether there are SSL or SSH proxies that you set up at home or applications that you might load like an UltraSurf or a Tor, these things are relatively easy to get, and again, they circumvent your policy completely. So from an evasion perspective, I think those are the two angles. If I'm a threat developer and I'm looking to develop threats, I'm either targeting your user or I'm targeting your applications, and I'm tricking your user or an application into getting me through those defenses.
Anyone add to that?
I would agree. I think that common network defenses today have too much reliance on port and log information. One of the reasons why all the DoD money that's been spent on network security in the last 8 years still didn't prevent WikiLeaks. If you have a end user using a Torified SFTP with Provoxy enabled going to an anonymized Dropbox, it's going to look like port traffic. That's all. And if he encrypts the payload into 10 megabyte bits, it'll be completely invisible to all the first generation network security tools out there today. So yeah, that's a problem. It's easy to evade the environment, and there need to be tools that you can quickly and in an automated fashion deploy across your entire enterprise that provide you the surveillance intelligence necessary to detect those kinds of advanced threats.
Sound like you're pitching my product.
I'm just trying to be collaborative.
Hey, you're getting it. I like that. Actually, Dave, my next question is for you, and this is actually something that came to me. Someone mentioned this today. I think it was probably brought up in one of your boardrooms. Basically, someone mentioned the concept you have of security intelligence as it relates to pre- and post-exploits, and that basically asked how it's relative to what others are calling post-perimeter phase of network security. And I had no idea what any of that meant, so I'm hoping you can shed light on that.
Okay, well, I hope I'm not in the same boat then. I think if you were to talk about post-perimeter security, we were just talking about that, what Chris had mentioned and what I'd mentioned. Boundaries are passé in many ways today. If you're not doing active monitoring of chat, IRC, games, social networks, all these things are creeping into our environments as we speak. And something that's just looking at log traffic is going to miss it. So there's the concept of advanced threats, but you need to take it up a level. You need to be able to federate across your existing environment utilizing solutions that are already in place. Every one of you has log and network security tools and architectural change management, configuration management, vulnerabilities